Introduce myself for a few minutes for new attendees. So my name is Purushottam. You can call me Puru. I work as a consulting manager at blockchain solution group at EMURGO, Japan. So this is my QR code. You can always contact me through LinkedIn. So what do we do at EMURGO? We do system development. We provide technology solution as well as blockchain solution for those who need. And then we also have the EMURGO Academy, which is in India. We provide education, blockchain education solutions to engineers or any those who are interested in learning about blockchain. So next is the acceleration in investment. We also invested in startups. Some of them are in early stage, and then those are very good startups as well. So next is advisory and advisory service. So we provide blockchain advisory service for the SMEs, organizations, or government as well. Yeah. So just a minute. I mean, some more people are joining our webinar. So I just want to allow them. Okay. Yeah. So I will start the topic. So what is supply chain management? Supply chain management is a centralized management where it's a plan for manufacturing raw material to the production. So this involves a lot of processes. So by supply chain management, companies are able to cut excess cost, and then they also can deliver goods on time for the customer. So good software, good supply chain management system will remove the headache for any organization, as well as it will also reduces the recall of any product, and then it will be also legally binded as well. So supply chain management is most frequent. It's not frequent. It's must for most of the product development. Okay. So sorry for the interruption. There'll be many people joining in between, so I had to admit them to allow add them into the webinar. Okay, so I will move on to the what is involved in supply chain management. So what are the components in supply chain management? These are the some of the identified components like procurement planning, demand planning, supply network planning, production planning, detailed scheduling, sourcing and supplier management, logistics, as well as the custom and regulatory, and then trade finance. Procurement planning is nothing but is a process from where the good is coming or the product is coming, then where, what, as well as from whom it will be outsourced. So then the demand planning will be the planning for the demand for the products to better supply to the customers. Among this, the logistics is also a very complicated network, as well as the regulatory body. The regulatory aspect is very important in oil and gas exploration, chemical industries, cosmetic industries. And then next is trade finance. Trade finance is one of the important topic. Like it was said around 80 to 90% of the import and export happens in trade finance, which is nothing but letter of credit and then supply chain finance. So what are the existing challenges in supply chain? So there are many multiple challenges, but mainly are multiple parties and players involved in supply chain. So what are the components which we spoke previously? These components are handled by different players, as well as we have there are some tools exist, but everybody is not providing the same. All the components. So it all fragmented. And then there is a lack of transparency among the players, and then a discrepancy in records. So anybody can edit or delete the record, which are it's stored in these systems. And then limited cross-process visibility, like other players cannot view the data in other processes, as well as since because of the globalization, most of the product or as the chemicals are named different in all different regions, as well as there is a point-to-point communication required in the supply chain management, which is very complicated network again. And then because all of this, there is a high chances of counterfeiting of products. So these the analysis of the goods which can be faked. So from the report from OEDC, they have analyzed around 3.3% of the goods are fake in the world. So most of them are 22% are footwears, 16 are clothing, 13 are luxury goods. So it's leather goods, and then most of these goods are luxury goods, and then it is causing biggest pain for any brand owners, and then the luxury goods also. So it was estimated in current value in 2020, it was estimated 1.82 trillion USD worth goods has been faked. So this is the estimate in developed countries only. But if you look into the developing countries or the underdeveloped countries, the number is the number will increase. Yeah. So these are the vulnerable goods which are vulnerable for counterfeiting. So most importantly, like the pharmaceutical, alcohol, cosmetics, and then food package. So all these products also face a life threat for any consumers, since these are all the consumable products. So these products can be easily counterfeited as well, especially in underdeveloped countries and then developing countries. So could a better solution is possible to roll back any of the counterfeited products, or else any of the life-threatening products? So yeah, there was a scenario of CDC issue, like E. coli in lettuce in the US in November 2019. So there was a area where they grow the lettuce, and then with had a E. coli, and then some consumer faced the issue. E. coli is a bacteria which will affect the digestive system of humans. So to trace back who grew the product with, who was the farmer, and then where it was sourced, it took more than a week for the regulators, and then it already caused the damage for the people. For the consumer. So finally, they found the supplier, as well as many stores who are already selling this lettuce. They rolled back their supply. So, but with a good traceability supply chain, it is really possible to identify the issue, and then to also roll back the products within seconds, because it's all connected. So yeah, so then what is blockchain? Blockchain is it's a technology behind, in simple definition, it's a technology behind Bitcoin, and it's a distributed database. So currently, there are most of the organization have a centralized database, but this will be distributed among in various area, and then no person have the control for the database. As well as this database is immutable, means nobody can edit or else delete the records. Because if anybody delete a record in a blockchain, then it cannot be cryptographically we can look back, and then as well as it will be compared with other blockchain who are running the blockchain, and then it is always say shows, okay, somebody has, I mean, edited, but it's not correct blockchain. So as well as, I mean, it's a trustable because nobody can control this blockchain. Yeah, and then whatever the data is inserted into this blockchain, it will be stored in a blocks, and then which is always linked in a cryptographical hash. So we'll see. Yeah, so what are the types of blockchains existing? So they are public blockchain, the Bitcoin, Ethereum, Cardano. So these are the public blockchains. The next is the private or consortium blockchain. So private blockchains are those where companies create them a consortium or organize the organization. Like, I mean, they organize themselves, and then they create the consortium to share any data. So why it is why they create the consortium? Because sometimes organization trade themselves, like, I mean, they do data transaction, or else they also share some documents which should be private for them. It should not be public, or else nobody should see. As well as they have the daily transactions as well. So sometimes this transaction will be recorded in an account book, but I mean, the main settlement will happen after 1 month. So, but I mean, to overcome this, they can also use the consortium blockchain to do the transaction for every process. So there is one more, like a hybrid blockchain. So hybrid blockchains are like it's a combination of private and then public. So the consortium can share their data among themselves, as well as they can allow some part of it to be visible for public. So what is smart contract then? The smart contract is a program which is stored in a blockchain, and then it's a predefined program. Like, what are the conditions to be there to execute this program, or as to make the transaction happen? We can specify those conditions in a set of code, and then store it in a blockchain that is called as a smart contract. So in a simple sense, the smart contract works like a vending machine. I mean, it's a simple example. So this just imagine when we insert any cash into the vending machine, it will always calculate the cash amount of cash we inserted, and then based on that, the pre-program will check, okay, I mean, which are the drinks can be allowed to be bought from from the customer. So it will allow. Then some specific condition is met. Then the vending machine will give the drinks for the chosen client. So as well as it will also output the change, the excess change for the customer. So that's how it is similar as a smart contract. With the smart contract, we can create fungible token and the non-fungible token. The fungible token is those tokens which the value stays same for all the tokens. Non-fungible tokens are those the value for each token is different. So this non-fungible token can be used in to tag any commodities or else some assets. So we'll look into this in detail. Okay, so where blockchain can be used then with all this functionality? So the blockchain can be used in financial inclusion for any financial inclusion. Then to remove broker or intermediary in the business, or to create the auditable trail of the data, and then to store the data permanently in a database, and then to make the data, or is the business transparent for among the organization, I can say. So as well as, I mean, we can, since the smart contract is there, so we can also do the automated settlement, because I mean the smart contract is already pre-programmed. So nobody should be able to control this as well. So we'll move on. So this is the decision tree. Uh, Usually, when there is an organization who wanna integrate the blockchain, so these questions can answer their whether they want whether they can integrate the blockchain into the solution or not. So mainly, like, I mean, we have to look through whether the business has multiple parties. Do they have any conflict of interest in doing the business, as well as do they have any rules difference? Like, for example, one business can calculate a value, or else the current transaction in different formula, but other business will use different formulas. So this calculation can also be standardized among the companies. So then if we look into all these questions, then it will answer some of, like, I mean, if we go through in detail, then we can say, okay, whether the blockchain can be integrated into this business or not. So in the last question, like 6 and 7, it will answer whether it's the transaction or the data which is shared among the players can be public or private. If it can be public, then they can go for a public blockchain, or else if it should be in private, then they can go for a consortium. As well as in a consortium blockchain, the transaction cost for transaction of gas cost will be very low. And then with the public blockchain, we have to be bound for the public blockchain rules and regulations. So what are the benefits for supply chain? So these are the main benefits. Like it will increase the transparency among the players, as well as yeah, it's also easy. It will also erase the paperwork in any of the transactions. Then enforces the ethical source, like enforces the best practice among the players, as well as it's also capable of quicker and targeted product recalls, since the data is stored in blockchain, so it can be audit trailed. Then again, we can also justify the cost of the premium product with the blockchain. Defend against the counterfeiting. We can also issue by issuing the tokens, or as the NFC tokens for any of the goods, or else we can also register the product identity in a blockchain as well. As well as, I mean, that the theft can be easily identified, because some of the most transaction will be recorded into blockchain. As well as it also eliminates the third party and then the legacy systems. So these are major benefits, and then we can also name more, but I mean, these are the major benefits I can say. So which of the companies are already implemented the blockchain? So one is the IBM, which has implemented the blockchain to trace back their raw materials to the customers who are buying IBM products. And then the next is the Marx, which is a trade which is implemented the trade lens, which is one of the biggest shipping company in the world. Now they can trace back all the trucks, cargos, and then supply chain management through the blockchain. So this is just a simple example, like, I mean, how the blockchain can be. Yeah, this is just a simple example on supply chain management if there is no blockchain. So just imagine a farmer who is growing some sugarcane or some product, might be some Ayurvedic product or cosmetic product, he always has to go through the middleman. The middleman will procure the product, and then it will go through the product processing, then transportation, export warehouse, then the overseas shipping. After that, I mean, it goes through many players until it reaches the consumer. So there'll be always a question from the consumer whether the product they're buying is reliable, or else whether the cosmetics they're using is it organic? Since it's named as organic, but they cannot trust, as well as whether this product is not counterfeited, they cannot answer as well. Before that, I mean, any product which has to be imported, they have to go through the regulator, and then the regulator will take longer time to give any clearance for any new product. Since as I mentioned, the product might be different in name, or as difference in combination, the chemicals they have used, or as the raw materials they have used. For that, I mean, they have to go through all the paper documents. I mean, till now, whatever the import and export happening, they are much more paperwork are involved, as well as sometimes this regulatory clearance will take longer than expected, as well as it will cost more than a value of a product actually. So these are the, I mean, these are the very few problems in an existing market in supply chain management. Yeah. So what happens if we integrate a blockchain into a solution? So just what are the farmer grows? It can the data can be inserted in a blockchain. Some part of the data can be inserted into a blockchain, and then the processor can also insert data into blockchain. And then this blockchain, this supply chain management can be a consortium among producer, transportation management, the exporter, importer, then the shipment company, the cargo company, as well as the logistic provider. So this can be a consortium. If this is a consortium, then regulators can check any data from anywhere. So they can also give the clearance for any goods since the data is already transparent, and then it can be viewed from any source, like I mean in any source of the blockchain of the consortium. And then also a mobile application can facilitate a consumer to get a clearance about the product, and then it will also can create the loyalty about the product as well. So this consumer can be more loyal to the product instead of cross verifying and then checking other products as well. So this is just a simple story. So the similar consortium blockchain can be implemented in various business scenarios. So, and then it also can be different in many business scenarios, and then it also depends on the business to business as well. So based on the collaboration among the consortium clients, we can design this blockchains. So first of all, I want to take this time to thank everybody. So this is the QR code. You can scan this QR code to receive a newsletter from our EMURGO marketing team, and then you can also contact us through this email or else from my LinkedIn profile as well. So I'll give some time for those who wanna register for this newsletter. We'll move on to the next speaker. The next speaker is Murzuki-san. He is the CEO of EMURGO Indonesia. He'll be speaking on a topic of EMURGO traceability.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for everyone attending this webinar. I'm sort of like taking over what Pru explained in his presentation. I think it was great to understand how blockchain works and how blockchain can be applied. And I would like to more get into the details of implementation, because EMURGO just recently announced we developed a product called EMURGO Traceability, and the first implementation was in Indonesia. That's where I head. And it's about coffee. So I like to take everyone through how we're going to implement the solution, as well as what are the specific benefit delivered by implementing traceability solution. So let's begin. So again, my name is Shunsuke Murasaki. I'm originally from Tokyo. I am myself Japanese, but I live in Indonesia, and I'm acting as the CEO of the company. And this is a QR code for my Twitter. If you have some question, if you have some idea to work with us or implement blockchain solution, then please reach out to me by this email, or just follow me on Twitter and DM me. Thank you. So this is a table of contents, and this is what I'm going to cover in my presentation. There's what is traceability, why it matters, and benefit, and our product, and our first implementation case in Indonesia. And in the last, there is one topic called findings and our plan going forward. I don't have a specific slide for this, but I'd like to briefly share with all of you after implementing, as well as on the way of implementing the solution, we found something quite interesting. So in the last, I'd like to share that topic with you guys. So I'd like to start from the definition of it, because this word traceability is going on quite frequently recently, I guess. But what is it? The definition of it is traceability is a capability to trace something. In some cases, it's interpreted as ability to verify the history, location, or the application of an item by means of document record and identification. So it's a combined word of trace and ability. So if you can see in this image on the light, it is a ability to trace some goods from upstream supply chain to downstream of supply chain. And the tracing could mean various means. And I would like to go on to the next slide, which is why does it matter? Ability to trace something, it sounds great, but why do I have to care? Why does it matter? I guess it's something important to share. And one of the reasons is that fighting for food fraud, because there are many food frauds happening in every sector. One of the example is there are research done by UCLA that found that 48% of sushi in Los Angeles are mislabeled. So if you go to like sushi restaurant and you are eating, let's say, maguro tuna, but it could be quite difficult for general public to judge whether that is really tuna or not. So sushi restaurant, I'm just assuming sushi restaurant itself is not really trying to fake things, but you know, supply chain is quite complex now. So if we can go back in the days, like where you can know and you are buying some product from the person that you know, but in the modern supply chain, there's a lot of stakeholders with different incentives, so it could be quite difficult to know like where the food is coming from. And another benefit and another reason why you should care is ethical sourcing. This is also another trend going on, which is companies are very, very keen on being transparent and responsible for its product and services. So one of the example of ethical sourcing is our initiative done by Starbucks, which is called Principles of CAFE Practices, which is basically sustaining farmers and strengthening communities, which means you don't buy a product in an unfair status, which means like you have to pay for what you have to pay, and you don't force farmers to do extra work, or basically you don't exploit your vendor. So Starbucks is doing a bunch of surveys on farmers. This is actually one of the things quite important, because if you know, like your farmer that you are buying coffee beans from, they are farmers in the right condition and there's no child labor involved, then the company can be quite transparent in, and they can present the premium, or they can present what they are doing to end consumer. So this is another reason why traceability has to be cared. The last thing that I think is quite interesting is proving the premium of products. If you see this durian, this is one of the I guess a very tasty fruits in the world, and the picture in the right and left looks quite similar, but it has a huge difference in pricing. So one of the line in left is called J Queen, which back then it was priced as $928 per piece, while the one in the right called Musangkin is quite normal durian, which is about $26 a piece. But the problem is, if you bring this product to buyers, let's say, and it looks the same, and you need to prove the quality of it, but it's quite difficult to prove the quality of it. But if you can prove that your durian has a premium durian by the history, like trading history or the history of the seed, because then you can actually, verify, and you can actually justify the price of your premium product. So this is another reason that traceability is quite important. And in the next slide, I want to explain about the benefits gained from traceability. This is kind of similar to what Peru explained earlier, but Walmart in the States has already implemented blockchain solution to trace mangoes. And before, it took them for 7 days to trace mango, where the mango is coming from. But now, because they implement blockchain, the time to check where the mango is coming from got reduced to 2.2 seconds. And this is really great, because if you have some problem with mango, let's say Walmart has some problem with mango, and they need to make sure like which mango has a problem. And if they don't have any visibility, what they can do is they stop entire supply chain, because any mango could potentially have the same issue. However, if you can specify which mango has a defect or which mango has a problem, then you can essentially stop one of the supply chain, not stopping all of the supply chain. So this can reduce the cost. And another initiative that I know, this is actually happening in Indonesia, is that there's a trading firm called Itochu in Japan that initiated a traceability solution to trace rubber materials. And this is because rubber materials is mainly sold to automotive companies, and they are typically major companies. So if you can prove provenance of rubber products, then the big companies has a CSR mandate, then they have to buy a product in a sustainable way or provable way. So if you can prove the product provenance, and where your raw materials are coming from, then you can essentially sell your product at higher price. So this is a classic example of benefit that you can get from traceability. So now we'd like to introduce EMURGO Traceability. So EMURGO Traceability is a leading solution that provides all the benefit of using blockchain without any of complexity. And it has a desktop and a mobile solution, and also offline support. And it's compatible with existing supply chain system, and it's quite cost friendly. And it's quite flexible in the architecture, and it can accommodate any type of businesses. Like we started with coffee business, but this is essentially can be applied to, let's say, palm oil or any type of commodity or any type of goods that can be traced, that should be traced. So this is the backend and the front end. So in the left is a backend. We call it like back office operation, which stakeholders on producer side, such as farmer, processor, or in coffee case, it's roaster, are operating. So what they do is they create a transaction, and recipient of goods is going to verify the transaction with some metrics defined. And in the right, it is a consumer-facing application, which is, let's say, if I were a coffee drinker at a cafe, then I can scan a QR code and I can enjoy the order provenance and order transaction history in a quite easily digestible way. And I will be sure, let's say, how many days it took so that the coffee arrived at the cafe, or how many kilometers it traveled from the production site up until the cafe that I'm in, or the cup of coffee that I'm drinking, how many farmers contributed to the cup of coffee. So this is a solution to give consumer confidence. The product that, let's say in case of me, I'm offered is authentic, like authentic one, and I can put more trust in the brand. So we implemented this solution to a cafe called Blue Korintji Coffee in Jakarta, Indonesia. So Blue Korintji Coffee, a brief introduction of Blue Korintji Coffee. Blue Korintji Coffee is a coffee brand in Indonesia that have 7 branches within Indonesia. So they have cafe in Jakarta, they have a cafe in Bali, and some other regions. And there are a coffee company that has a great vision in sustainable. So they implement this solution with us so that they can provide provenance and to consumers, as well as they can prove the authenticity of their coffee product. So in this supply chain, these are the actors involved. You don't need to look into these small letters, but basically there are farmers, processor, and roasters, and cafe. So farmer harvests coffee beans, and processes those raw material in the way roasters requires, and they ship that product to roasters, and the roasters use the beans, in this case green beans, and they roast the green beans to roasted beans that we see most of the time. Then roaster sends that roasted beans to cafe, and cafe at the cafe barista brew the coffee, and I have a coffee from the cafe. So that's like a general process of how the coffee industry works in terms of manufacturing processes. And it is quite complex. Again, like you don't need to look into small letters, but these are the processes involved, and these are the actors involved, and it's quite complex. And coffee process is somewhat standardized, but it could be different in some other coffee processes. So this is specifically talking about the coffee process in our implementation. So farmers just produce coffee and collectors pick it up and they pre-process, and processor do sortation and grading, and processor hand it over to logistic company, and logistic company deliver that to roaster roast the coffee beans, and they send it to cafe, and cafe brew the coffee, and you have a cup of coffee. So after those all effort, here we are at the cafe. You purchasing the coffee, and as you can see in the middle, there's a QR code in this cafe. So once this woman scan a QR code with some mobile, it's going to take you to this consumer-facing application. You can see all sorts of information like map, and you can also go into individual farmer. You can check like where the farmer is located and what's his name, where is his farm, and so on. And also you can see the information about roast, because roast put the information as well. So you can see the degree of acidity, degree of sweetness added by roaster. And not to mention, you can see days, how many days it took for your cup of coffee to be prepared, and how long it traveled, and again, how many farmers contributed to your cup of coffee. So this is really great. This is a really great communication tool for cafe, because typically representation of authenticity is just a paper tag attached to your cup of coffee or bag of coffee saying this is from, let's say, Brazil, from a specific area. And yes, you can trust in the information if you trust the brand, but you don't know what's happening between the supply chain. So this digitized solution, as Puru mentioned, with blockchain, no one can change information inputted into the blockchain database. So if you trust in a piece of paper, then you have higher degree of trust in the system. So I'm going to take you through the back office application, which processor, roasters, and cafe uses. And this is the backend application. So this is our Blue Korintji Coffee backend, and this is actually a processor's web page, which processor can add new farmers. They can register a new batch, or they can register a new produce, which is going to go to processor. So as you can see, you can as a processor, you can add new farmers and collectors, and when these farmers or collectors are going to be added on a system, obviously there has to be a verification process. So in Indonesia, there is an identification called KTP, which is quite, I guess, equivalent to sort of social security number. So when onboarding process, our processor verify the information of farmer who want to be in the system by identification, and they're actually going to visit the farm of the farmer, and they verify the farm location, and also we have a system to produce coordinates, which is altitude. So you can actually know like one of the farmer is located what level in the mountain too. And you can add obviously name, and this is what I will explain. If you put coordinates here, the elevation of the farm will be automatically calculated, and you can add like unique picture of the farmer, which will be shown in consumer facing application. So what processor does is they get a batch from farmers, and based on the invoice that farmer presented to the processor, they register a new batch. So that's a starting point of the data to be put it into the blockchain database. And using that specific batch, processor is going to register new produce that is going to be sent it to roaster. And this is an approval page, which when processor put the information, it has to be approved. So you approve the transaction. And when adding new batch, there's a key information that a processor has to put, which is type of coffee. In Indonesia, there are two types of famous coffee, which is Andansari and Sigarartan. They are the two unique kinds of coffee. And you can add the date of receiving raw material, from which collector and from which farmer, and how many weight it was, and when is the date you registered the information, and so on. So all of these, I'm going back to the slide a little bit. So after verifying all the transaction and going through all the stakeholders, all the information that stakeholders inputted in this software will be represented by one single QR code, which you can scan a QR code and you can enjoy these kind of provenance. So that's about a brief introduction of our EMURGO traceability as well as our foster implementation in Indonesia. And one of the things that I wanted to share is that after going through these transactions, before farmer was not really doing digital transaction. So farmers lives in cash economy. So when they sell product to processor, obviously processor paying cash. And before there was no digitized transaction record. So farmer couldn't accumulate their sort of trust, because let's say like when farmer go to bank to apply for some productive loan because they want to expand their land or production, but they don't have any solid record of transaction, they cannot prove like I managed to harvest 10 ton last year and I should be able to produce 12 ton this year with this productive loan and so on. But there was no solid digital record to prove their activity. But after going through this system, blockchain system, which is immutable, so if processor keep approving farmers' transaction, then farmer will accumulate their trust and digitize data on this platform, and which bank possibly come in and utilize data to assess the farmer's activity. So this is one of the things that we found out, and we are very keen to explore with local financial institutions that farmers are really making really good effort, but because of lack of digital transaction, they were not really exposed to modern financial vehicle. But this could be a really good implementation, and this could be a really good use cases that farmer can accumulate their transaction and trust on this platform. Then possibly they can access to productive one. And another things we found out is in Indonesia there's a specific indication called geographical indication, which has been given to about 50 farmers, which is a very, very premium product approved by certain ministry. And if you have that geographic indication, you have higher premium in your product, which obviously can work in the market. But that GI can also be on the blockchain so that they can prove the premiumness of their product. So that's also some area that we are really keen to explore. So that's about my presentation. Thank you very much for listening. I'm going back to the last page. Yeah, is my email address. So if you have some great idea, just like I mentioned, like some type of financial institution or financial product type of collaboration, or if you are simply want to know more about EMURGO traceability or our first implementation in coffee supply chain, then please reach out to me by s.murasaki@emurgo.id. Thank you very much.
We have received many questions from the sign up attendees. So we have shortlisted few questions. So probably we can go through that, and then we can answer few of them. Just a minute, let me share my screen again. Yeah, these are the questions. So yeah, Murasaki-san, just a minute. Yeah, do you want to answer the first question? Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Yeah, so do you want to answer this first question from Carlos?
Sure. Carlos, how could we engage all the stakeholders of supply chain into adopting blockchain for transparency and traceability?
Yep.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Wow. I think this is really a good question. Because I believe this is actually really difficult things to do, and we face some difficulty on the way when we implement this coffee blockchain to Blue Korintji Coffee. And I think there are two key things, right? I think the bigger thing is to share a vision across all the stakeholders, because at the end of the day, farmers, collectors, or processors are the one who is doing day-to-day operation, maintaining a ledger, and so on. So they really need to be aware what you want to achieve by implementing blockchain. So what would be the benefit that all the stakeholders can enjoy, and what you guys are aiming for. So that's the most important thing, I think. And second, most important thing is probably is that to design a proper economic incentive, because stakeholders basically doing extra effort. So back in the days, they're in cash economy, like they were just selling product, getting things paid in cash, so they didn't have to do any input things before blockchain. But after blockchain, they have to do extra work to it, right? So in our case, Blue Korintji Coffee was very committed to bring back a portion of revenue back to the farmers, because Blue Korintji Coffee can enjoy provenance presented to customers, right? So I think those are two more key important things that you need to be aware of.
Oh, yeah, thank you. So it's a second question from Mark. So what is the best way for a company to integrate with the blockchain with little or low current knowledge? So probably I can answer a little, and then probably Murasaki-san can continue from there. So yeah, we know like the blockchain is new technology, and it takes quite a long time to learn this technology. But yeah, we have to integrate not only blockchain, like other technologies as well to provide any solution. For example, the cloud technology. Even we have to take care of the database, and then how much it costs, and then is it feasible to integrate the blockchain into any of the solution. So probably we can say blockchain might not be the solution for every issues, but we can provide if they need for transparency, or else to remove any third party, or else that any digital transaction is involved, and then it has to be quite frequent, then the blockchain is the best solution. And then we can also recover the cost by implementing the blockchain through collecting the gas, as well as we can also do some bit of revenue generation from by running the nodes as well. So this can be done with a public blockchain. Even with a private blockchain also, like it all depends on the knowledge of the engineer, how they want to implement. But it takes little more time. For the same reason, we also are providing the academic services from India side. So you can also keep in touch with us and then learn from there. Or else, I mean, if you have a budget for implementation, then you always can contact us, and then we can guide you through the implementation of blockchain. So, Muruzaki-san, do you want to add some more notes into this?
Sure. So we would take in the question from Mark, or which one we were answering?
Yeah. I think I answered the Mark. So, do you want to answer the next one?
Okay. So the next
Miriam?
question from Miriam is,
Yeah.
okay, is public or private Ethereum based system section? Okay. So I guess there are two questions in this one question, and I answered to each of them. So the first question in the question is public or private Ethereum-based system efficient for food traceability, and I think this is really depends on the scale that you want to achieve, because it's at the end of the day it's about transaction, right? So if there's a very high frequent transaction, and it probably better to use private Ethereum. And if we're talking about our case, which is a coffee company that is selling like 500 cups on daily basis, EMURGO Traceability haven't had any issue yet. So that's what I can share for the first question. And another question is, what's another option rather than using QR code? Yes, I think this is also a really good question. And I think what we can say from EMURGO side is EMURGO invested in a company called HelixWorks. I can share the URL in the chat later, but it's a company, a biotech startup, which actually went to our acceleration program called D-Lab, and our CTO has frequent communication with that company. But what they do is they design a custom-made DNA data storage, and which application can be, applied to your product in a form of porting. So there's no QR code, but you can prove your product authenticity using that technology. So aside from QR code, you might want to look into D-Lab HelixWorks, because they have such amazing technology.
Yep. So probably I can add a few more things. I mean, other than QR code, probably, I mean, if it is an expensive food item, like, I mean, the package, then NFC tag or as the RFID tags can also be integrated. So it all depends on the cost of the food, as well as because, I mean, these tags also will cost more money. So yeah, I mean, it's always better to integrate some IoT devices in a tracking, because, I mean, we can easily track the goods in a fraction of seconds. I mean, it depends on the range as well to read these sensors. Yeah. So yeah, next question is from Daniel. So considering tremendous gap among infrastructure of undone countries like Spanish-speaking countries, do you think a integration project could be viable? So probably Muruzaki-san, you can answer since Indonesia is one of the developing country.
Sure. Okay. So considering tremendous gap. Okay. Yeah. It could be. We actually really need to see and understand what's the situation there. But if we can mention about internet connection, in a coffee supply chain, the processor is located in a place called Kerinci, which is it's very, very far. Like from Jakarta, it takes 18 hours to get there, and there's not very good internet connection. However, our tech team designed EMURGO traceability in a very light manner. So with they're very limited internet connection, they can actually process information, like adding information, propagate data, and so on. So again, like we really need to understand the each situation in each country. But EMURGO Traceability is designed very light, and it's actually working in a place with limited internet access. So could be.
Yep, yep. It can also be done. Like for example, the used data can be captured in a device. Then when the internet connection is there, then it can be inserted into the blockchain.
Yep.
So that is also can be happen. Because I mean, there are some situations. For example, when we integrate any blockchain solutions for the cosmetic, like for if any container want to transport from one place to another place, and then the container has to be has to manage some temperature, then the sensor can take the reading of the whole duration, and then once it get the internet, then it can be inserted. So the similar situation can be also applicable for some countries which are having very less infrastructure. So on timely basis, when there is internet connection, but I mean, I believe in most of the countries, there will be the internet connection, and then most governments are aware of it. To create the the governments also are trying to give the provenance for the citizens to get the internet access for in very cheap cost as well. So probably in any situation we can also do the PPP model, like public and private a partnership to get into any project, yeah, if there is any opportunity. Yep. So next question is from Jay. So this is about is EMURGO traceability only for coffee, or applicable for more complex supply chain such as palm oil that are different process, or any and then more stakeholders involved. So whether it can be, in simple sentence, whether it can be implemented for any other food and beverage solutions as well?
Yeah, short answer for this is yes. Yeah, and more in details, EMURGO Traceability has been designed as very flexible in accommodating any business models. So yes, it can be applied to, I guess, like any type of supply chain and business process. In fact, that our solution for like our implementation is currently dedicated for domestic in Indonesia. I mean, the implementation for Blue Korintji Coffee. So there's no entity which typically involved in coffee trade, which is importer. So when you have substantial amount of coffee, then you obviously want to export it to, let's say, Europe or some other country. But small roastery is not able to have one container worth of coffee beans. So there's always, a coffee importer in each country. So that's another entity we can add in this software if you're going to scale it up to, or if you have some lead partners who want to do international transaction. So adding that actor is also possible, meaning that we can sort of like customize the backend in a way that we can accommodate a lot of type of business processes.
Yeah, actually, I mean, this EMURGO traceability solution can be tailored according to the needs. So it's not only recommend, since we have the technology, then we can also provide the same thing for many other food and beverage solutions. As well as, I mean, since we have the good engineers, and we can also develop any solutions in a less amount of time, because all the engineers, I mean, already have good enough knowledge in blockchain and then other, sorry, other platforms as well. So yeah, and then we have many other questions, but I mean, we cannot answer all of the questions in the short time. So what we can do is we'll reply you guys through email, and then we'll try to contact. So you can also list what are the questions it's listed in the comment session. Also, we'll try to answer that through email. Yeah, thank you all for joining us.
Yep. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for listening.
And then you can always contact us. through the link, like the email, or as from the newsletter as well. And then I hope you already have my LinkedIn profile detail, so you can always contact us. We look forward to see you in the next webinar. So we'll let you know the next webinar when it is. So thank you all for joining this webinar.
Thank you for the question. It was a very quality question. Thank you.
Yep. See you.
See ya. Bye.